Hello, welcome to Back to School Night here at Santa Rosa High School. You've arrived at ArtQuest Photography, and I'm John Sappington, the current instructor of photography here at Santa Rosa High. So hopefully this is the destination you had in mind when you click that link. If not, you've got time to escape. I'm here to give you a brief orientation on the types of resources we're using in the classroom. I've got them tabbed back here to show you and walk you through that. I've also got some previews to some work that the students have been doing this fall. And then I'll also give you some addresses and links to follow if you have questions or concerns. So bear with me as we juggle around here with a little bit of technology, and hopefully you get something useful out of this. So anyway, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you. This is something we do a lot during class, something you'll definitely get used to, or maybe you're already used to this. We're going to bounce out of here and into a browser. So now we're in Google Chrome, and what we're looking at here is basearts.com, which is my domain. On my domain, I keep a lot of links and resources that the students use in order to contact me, to educate themselves about my own work, my own personal work, and to also get additional information regarding the classwork. I set it up here for you all so that you could easily find your way into the information. So if you would like, after the presentation's over, this site will also be available to you. basearts.com is the address, the URL. Type that into any browser and you'll come into this page. The first thing I wanted to talk you through real quick was something you've probably already seen, I'm hoping, which is the welcome back letter that I sent and shared with the students at the beginning of the year. This steps through kind of policies, procedures, and important dates and milestones for the year here in ArtQuest. So this is a really good document to refer to throughout the year. And if you've lost it, it's easily accessible via the classroom, Google Classroom, where the students attend the classes. So it's always available to you. And again, as I said, if you bring up basearts.com, you've got an active link to it right now that will remain active for the next couple of days so that you can get that information. Just quickly, some highlights from this. Obviously, the beginning, I'm kind of trying to give you an introduction just to me so you know who I am. That's the first part. Second part goes through some important fall dates to know, both for yourselves and maybe for friends and or other family members, if they're interested in shadowing or interested in applying to ArtQuest. You can look to that section to find out dates. Some of the dates I didn't have at the moment, but I'll post those later. And that will update in the document that is accessible to you via Classroom. Additionally, the welcome letter lays out my ideas of pedagogy as related to the arts and to photography. So I'd encourage you to read through that. We kind of assume that everyone who applies to the ArtQuest program is probably already appraised of our project-based program. But just in case, if you want a little more information with regard to how we structure the classes and why we structure the classes around project-based learning, then this is a good section in the overview for you to review and maybe review with your students. I give you a brief breakdown on the course description. Obviously, this year is a modified version of that, which we're struggling somewhat to accommodate, as you know, but we'll hopefully try to hit most of these objectives and try to assure that we reach some of the outcomes. Obviously, some of them are going to be virtually impossible to do unless we find that we're able to get back together as we move closer to January. Let's hope, because I'd hate for the kids to have to miss it. Again, it gives you policies on attendance, grading criteria, classroom rules. Of course, the classroom rules have changed since our classroom is virtual, but this also covers some of the virtual issues with regard to behaviors in the classroom. Required materials and lab donation. That was one area that I really thought I should probably talk through with you. Generally speaking, every year in ArtQuest, we ask for a family donation of $120 per student per year. And that goes quite a ways, actually, almost entirely covers our cost of equipment in terms of photographic materials, paper, film, batteries, etc., that come up throughout the year. It also generally helps us pay for transportation and ticketing for at least one major field trip into the city to attend an exhibition, generally speaking, a photographic exhibition at a major museum or institution in the city. This year, of course, in this current situation, we're probably not going to be doing a in-person field trip, and we're also not able to use light-sensitive materials. And so I am not really pushing the lab donations at this point. I'm going to review that and see how we're doing come December. And then I'll be back in touch as we begin the second semester in January with an update to our financial needs, if we have any, with regard to the remainder of the semester or the remainder of the year. So that's something that I appreciated. If you've already sent check-in, those are much appreciated. Those will help to cover some of the costs we're still having. But I don't anticipate that it's a really good time for everybody to be making this type of donation. And it's not something in terms of budget that I'm going to necessarily need until we go into face-to-face. So at least for the moment, your lab donation is on hold. And I hope that provides some level of relief to you and your family as well. The last bit I talk about is the importance of the sketchbook, which your students should now have, actually, following last week's and this week's distributions. They should have access to a sketchbook and some pencils. I'm hoping for the drawing and the early elements and principles reviews that we're working through this first quarter. So again, at the end of the presentation, I'm going to give you some links to these documents. So if you have any questions about that, and I'm also going to try to make myself available to answer any questions and or confusion that you may have with regard to the syllabus. So watch for those at the very end of the presentation. Then I wanted to just give you a quick overview of the types of sites and technical resources that we use in the classroom. So I wanted to point out my domain is itself one of the resources that we often reference whenever talking about principles that relate to my own photographic work, and I'll often bring that work into the classroom to discuss. So basearts.com is definitely one of those central resources that we use for the classroom. The other is a blog, which is like a news forum that I maintain for the students. In there, I make postings of current events and exhibitions that are going on around the world. So I take in quite a bit of information from various mailing lists and publications, and I filter that stuff for what I feel is the most appropriate material for photography students. And then I push that back out in my own news forum called blog.basearts.com. And here students can read through an extensive list of postings related to photo events, exhibitions, local events, international events, artist profiles, artist monograms. A lot of photography comes through the internet, of course, and I try to filter that out and put out some of it in a place where the students can easily access it without running into a lot of other potentially hazardous materials. So blog.basearts is a second resource that we use. That's your welcome letter. Then you also, I'm sure, are aware every morning they're checking in with me via Zoom, like what we're on here, and via Google Classroom. So I wanted to just kind of give you an overview on that. This is the beginning classroom. So first year students meet here every morning. Intermediate students, this is their classroom, and the advanced group, they meet here in this classroom. Inside of each one of these is, again, a large collection of links, and this also gives the students an ability to actually submit work. So there's a lot of work in here, their own work in imagery and drawing and writing. So I'll show you a little bit of that, and I have a good preview for you at the end of the presentation also of some of their current work. But let's just quickly run through kind of a brief orientation of Google Classroom if you've not been on it with them yet. This is what's referred to as the stream. This is where I do immediate postings if I need them to have information right away, and I want to distribute it to all of them quickly. Anything I post in here becomes available to them immediately, and there are no dates or necessarily no submissions into this, although they can comment on anything that's written here. This is really just where I make announcements. This is also where they pick up their links to the classroom or to Zoom or any other external extension that we may be using, technological extension. I would post the link in the stream, which the stream is always accessible to them via class links, and that's via the Santa Rosa High website. So this is the most accessible document that they can access. And so then in the stream, I post the links to all of the external resources that we then use. So that's something you can also look at if you would ever have a need to do that. Then the second major section of Google Classroom is the classwork, or the actual classroom, in my understanding and the way that I work with it. And in here, and I encourage you to ask your student to give you a quick tour if mine becomes too brief and you're interested in this. In here, we structure all of the reading materials, lessons, tutorials, assignments, and assignment parameters. This is also where grading occurs. This is where, well, half of the grading occurs. The other half we have to port into another system that the students don't interact with, but the students are able to review, get critiques, comments and critiques on their work inside of Google Classroom, and also interact with peers through this facility. So at the top, this is kind of the most current assignments, activities, and or documents that I want the students to look at. And then what I've tried to do throughout the rest of the classroom itself is to structure and order all of the materials that are available to them. So leaving up at the top items that I want them to immediately interact with on any given day or week. And then as we proceed down through the listing, you'll see that these are ongoing assignments. So for beginning students, they have a to-do section. Those are things that are either in progress or that are still active in one way or another. Below that, elements in drawing, right now we're almost entirely focused on developing drawing abilities and interacting with elements and principles of fundamental graphic design. And so this is the resources for most of that work. We have templates, which are preset layouts for students to use for building projects. And then we have artist readings. A lot of readings, a lot of articles and features are also pulled in from the blog or pulled in from the world. And then we go through them together and kind of talk about the ramifications or the implications of those articles, so that those articles then form a repository inside of the classroom that becomes a little like a library. I archive all of the work throughout the year so that students can look back at work that they've done and pull from that work into the current work that they're doing. And then I try to maintain all of the administrative messaging and all of the important documents related to administrative side of the classroom I try to keep those available to the students as well. So down here, you'll find your syllabus, which is what I was speaking to from before, in a slightly different format, and you can feel free to read through that. The California Visual Arts Standards, which is what we teach to. A portion of our pedagogy is available there to you and to the students. And attendance policies, important dates, the most current dates that I get, I post into this section and point that out to the students. So you have a full range of resources and materials available within the classroom. And although the classroom is essentially self-contained, a self-contained kind of unit or classroom itself, we do go outside of that quite a bit, looking at other websites, looking at other institutional sites and their resources that are available. So we do bounce around a little bit outside of the classroom as well. But most of our activities and all of the work and peer interaction occurs inside of the Google Classroom and also through Zoom. So I won't go through all three of them. Basically, each one is structured in the same way. Current activities that I am drawing attention to, ongoing projects that are still active, again, technical handouts, artist readings, things that we're discussing or that we have discussed so that they can look back on them, and then administrative policies and resources that they may need to complete their requirements for school. Advanced is the same kind of a structure, same kind of organization. So at each level, they now have a Google Classroom that mirrors somewhat the classroom that we had on campus. So let's see. That is essentially it, save for what occurs within Zoom. And I do conduct Zoom classes every morning with all of my classes. I try to interact with the students on a daily basis. I feel like the routine is really one of the benefits of the ArtQuest program, is that intensive time spent together that helps you to develop your own photographic practice. So spending time with peers also on the same track as you, working toward the same objectives, I think really helps a student to integrate and to adapt to requirements of this field. So you'll see me every morning, and we try to get it done as quickly as possible so that they can move on with their day and get off the screen. Some days that doesn't go very quickly, but I think we've become more efficient as we've worked on it. So you should see improvements as we go. And hopefully you'll see some inspiration coming out of these Zoom class sessions and out of the resources that I'm providing. Last thing I'm going to suggest is that you check in with basearts.com, click any of those links, and there I'll also provide the most current information with regard to back to school night and my accessibility for question and answer period, which will follow this recording. Otherwise, it was great to talk to you. I hope that gave you some information and something maybe you didn't actually already know. And I think that's it. I'll hope to speak with you during the live session.